Hello, everyone. Nobody's going to be here just yet. We just started. Um, but yeah, should we do little introductions in case people don't know who we are? And then we can have a couple minutes for people to trickle on in before you start your presentation.
That works.
Cool. All right. Well, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Okay. So, writer and a podcaster. The Purple Paw Clan is not something I'm capable of talking about intelligently at the moment, but that is the company that's coming out of all of this. And so, how about if I leave it at that? Back to you,
Cool.
Robin.
All right. And I am the founder of the California Aggregation for Gender Diversity. My name is Robin Mallory. My pronouns are they, he. And we are building a platform of history and art, hopefully a museum in the very near future, as soon as we can raise enough funds for that. And we are here to uplift transgender, genderqueer, intersex, and non-binary voices and experiences and history. And I will leave that at that. And today we have Amy here to do her presentation again. It's a wonderful encore performance, as she did the same presentation for us for our first event. Was it over? It was over a week ago, like 2 weeks ago now.
Was
It
it two?
feels like
Yeah,
a
2
lot
weeks.
longer somehow.
I kind of feel
But
like it's 3, but maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. Maybe it is. Anyways, I'm not doing the math right now. So a couple of weeks ago, we'll say that, a couple of weeks ago, and it was a smash hit. Everyone loved the presentation, and we wanted to bring it back
Thank you.
and have it done again. And then we're gonna do a full encore. We're gonna do donate to Dare right after again. So for anyone who's just peeking in and watching, if you want to dare us to do something silly, especially if you want to do something Star Wars themed, because it is May the 4th today, go ahead and send those our way, and we'll just be goofing off and having fun. Yeah, so without further ado, would you like to begin your presentation?
Sure. Let's go. Forgive me too. I glossed over. I am a transgender woman, and my pronouns are she, her. Forgive me. I was put on the
It's a
spot. So I
trans
was like,
space.
what?
We like assume
Yeah,
people
very
know this
much.
at this point, right? All
Right.
right, I'm gonna remove myself, and the stage is yours.
All right. Let me switch over to share screens. All right. Is this showing, Robin? Presumably. Okay, it is. Good. All right. So today I want to talk about sex and gender and how the two relate from the perspective of a scientist, which I am, who turned into sort of a philosopher. But before I go too far, I want to tell a story about growing up. And I admit it's going to start off a little bit sad, but it gets better toward the end because you see, back in the olden days, which was after Woodstock ended, but actually long before Star Wars was ever in theaters, a baby girl was born. And what was strange about this baby girl is that her parents were not even aware that she was born, which is not because her mother was completely unconscious or her father had gotten lost somewhere in Siberia. It was because a doctor looked at the baby girl's anatomy when she was born. And from the anatomy, the doctor made a decision about the baby girl's identity that would make the rest of her life very difficult because the doctor typed a single letter M on the little girl's birth certificate. And that doesn't seem like much because it wasn't even the letter itself that made the baby girl's life difficult. It was everything else that goes along with the letter M because the baby girl knew she was a girl. But that letter M made her parents, her community, her government think she was a boy. And that girl, she wanted to play Barbies with the other girls, but she was told those types of things weren't for her. And from that, she learned She wasn't good enough for the things girls do. But when she tried to do the things people said she was supposed to do, she wasn't any good at them. And nobody wanted to play with her. So from that, she learned she wasn't good enough for the things boys do either. And it didn't help that her father was abusive and her mother was distant, because from everything, the girl learned she really wasn't good for anything. So the little girl wasn't very happy. And then she reached puberty. She learned about the things that growing humans are supposed to know, but her body changed and it looked wrong. It felt wrong. Everything was wrong. And she tried as hard as she could, but no matter how she tried, it was wrong. So she wanted to hurt herself because that alone seemed right. And she tried to end it several times, really. But there was one thing that kept the girl going, and that was learning how things worked. So she applied herself in school, and she did her best to ignore the people who called her a boy, and she was successful, kind of successful. When the little girl finished school and found a job, she made money. But she found if she would just agree with those people who insisted on calling her a boy, she could make much more money. So she agreed. And the man she became buried that girl deep inside where nobody could find her, not even himself. And then the man found out he was going to be a father. He was going to have his own baby, and that baby was going to be a boy. Well, the man didn't know what he was going to do, but he did know he still didn't understand boys. And when his son was born, the man was sure about one thing. He was going to bury that little girl inside even deeper, because boys need fathers, and fathers are men. Fathers are not little girls. And as he tried so hard to forget about that little girl, the man slowly died inside. That is, until he was so broken, he just couldn't go on. And then his family reminded him about the little girl that still peeked out occasionally. And his family reminded him that little girl needed love, and they wanted to love her. So the dying man set her free. And the little girl became everything she was ever supposed to become. Now I realize everything she was ever supposed to become is a bit vague. I am Amethyst Herrick. I have a background in biology, especially genetics, which interested me from a very early age. I went on to complete a PhD in analytical chemistry, where I learned about gathering and processing data, statistical methods, experimental design, things like that. And after graduate school, I had a 25-year career in technology, where I worked from being an engineer all the way up to being a manager, executive management. But I've always been interested in how things work. And so on my own, I've studied psychology and philosophy and sociology, because all of this contributes to knowing more about the world and why it is the way it is, because I want to know why I am the way I am. I began gender transition in 2022, after a lifetime of knowing that I must, but believing I couldn't. And when I began hormone therapy, I experienced very significant cognitive changes. I realized I really hadn't felt emotions other than anger. And I realized that my relationship with physical pain was not normal. It was not just a high pain tolerance. And I also found an equanimity that almost a decade of meditation and spiritual practice had not brought. When I realized all this, I realized I had to begin research on myself. And if I was going to begin research on myself, I had to begin research on my community. And when I'd done that, I had to share what I learned. And so that's why I'm here today, to share what I've learned. I want to start off not by talking about sex or gender, but to consider a similar model. There is a reason for this detour. I want to demonstrate that what we perceive, what we experience, doesn't necessarily have to be scientifically accurate. So I want to start off by thinking about spheres, a red sphere, a blue sphere. But what does it mean to be red or blue? And to answer this question, we're going to take one more detour, this time into physics, the visible light spectrum. You can look this up on Wikipedia. The visible light spectrum is a range of wavelengths in the electromagnetic spectrum particular to human sight, particular to human experience. But to the typical human, it's not really anything we think about. The exact wavelengths don't make a difference, although we know there are social aspects to color. For instance, I grew up in Southern California, and something that I called blue, somebody in the Southeast might call green. We also know there's a biological aspect. Some of us perceive color differently. But we do understand that all of the colors have a relationship to each other. And if you're familiar with that Roy G. Biv acronym, you know also that red wavelengths are always longer than blue wavelengths. Now, physicists don't do well with vague definitions. What they see is a well laid out spectrum here. Colors to a physicist correspond to well-defined ranges of wavelengths. And so if we were to vary wavelength from long wavelengths on the left to short wavelengths on the right, we're going to find that at some point, physicists consider the light to be red, and then at some point not red. And similarly, at some point, the light is considered blue and then not blue. The important point to take here is that different wavelengths of light are given different names, but the names of the colors are words, only words. They are labels that physicists use to classify colors, that objects appear based on the wavelength of the light. So if we go back to reality here, I'm talking about light. I'm not talking about spheres. Why? Because objects appear colored because light is reflected from it. An object that appears red does so by reflecting red light and absorbing other light. An object that appears blue does so by reflecting blue light and absorbing other light. Well, with this model in mind, I'd like to become a junior physicist here. Let's run some experiments, see how this model holds up. If we take our red and blue sphere and we put them in sunlight, we see a red and blue sphere. Yippee for our side, I guess. But if we filter that sunlight so that only red light comes through, now we'll see a red sphere, but then we see the blue sphere appears gray. That's odd. And then if we filter the sunlight so that only blue light comes through, now our blue sphere looks blue again, but now the red sphere looks gray. This is a bummer, but actually it gets a lot more complicated because light doesn't just come in red, white, and blue. Light can be mixed with abandon. And let's say we filter the light so that purple comes through, both red and blue. Now we're going to find that the spheres appear red and blue, but maybe they're muted colors. And if we filter the light so that only yellow comes through, now both spheres appear gray. Well, what is the result that we're getting from this experiment? The primary result that we get is that color is not an intrinsic property of an object. Intrinsic means a property that's caused by the object itself. So something you would observe independent of experimental conditions. But that is not what we've observed. We've observed that objects only have the potential to appear a particular color. And the color that they appear depends on the context, depends on the type of light illuminating the object. And so now it's an appropriate question to ask, well, what then is a color? A color is a definition by physicists of a range of wavelengths in relationship to other wavelengths. And all of these relationships are based upon empirical properties of the human eye. Now, the conclusions that we would draw about color is that the physics definition is scientifically accurate, but it certainly isn't very romantic. And if we want to talk about running toward our lover in a verdant meadow, we'd have to change it to running toward our lover in a meadow that reflects light in the range of wavelengths. And that's just awful. But this is why humans apply labels. Humans take that technical label and apply it to objects for convenience. It is not accurate. It is not scientifically accurate, but it is much more convenient. The point to take from this is that an object is not a color, and a color is not an object. And really, the takeaway should be that common usage of a concept certainly doesn't affect whether or not we're using it accurately. Nature has always been happy to ignore human convenience regardless of how much we really want or not to. So now that we've spoken about colors, I want to apply the model slightly differently. I want to talk about reproduction. There are two types of reproduction. The first is called asexual reproduction. In this, only one parent participates in creating offspring. The corollary of that is that the offspring only receives traits from one parent. On the converse, there is sexual reproduction, in which at least two parents participate in creating offspring, with the corollary being that offspring receives the traits from parents in a semi-random distribution, and this semi-random distribution occurs through the combination of special cells called gametes. Now let me define two terms here. First, I use the word trait, and a trait is any characteristic of an organism. It could be the species of the organism, it could be physical structure, it could be biochemistry. And then gametes. Gametes, as I said, are very special cells. Only sexually reproducing species create them. And when they combine, they form what's called a zygote. And that zygote turns into a fetus, which turns into, in humans anyway, which grows into an offspring. Gametes are very interesting. Turns out that gametes come in many sizes, but gamete size, fun fact, is not related to organism size. Like mouse gametes happen to be larger than elephant gametes, but each species that's been observed in nature so far has a characteristic set of gamete sizes. Most species only have two gamete sizes. This is not universal, but it's close. It's near universal. There's a handful of species observed in nature that have more than two gamete sizes. In the binary, usually what we observe is you have one that is 3 or more orders of magnitude larger than the other. Now, to the typical human, just like in color, we don't really care about the size of each gamete. But just like red and blue, the gametes are related, this time not by wavelength, but by size. They have a relationship to each other. And the relationship is important. And biologists distinguish and name these gametes by the relative size, where the sperm is the smaller of the two gametes, and the ovum is the larger of the two gametes. Now, biologists are better with vague definitions than physicists, but still not very good at it. And they see, again, a spectrum of size of gametes. And if we were to look from small gamete on the left to large gamete on the right and scroll, and change the size of the gamete, we're going to find within one species that a gamete would be considered a sperm and then not a sperm. And then similarly, if that gamete got larger, we would find a point where the gamete is considered an ovum and then considered not an ovum. The point here, again, is that different sizes of gametes are given different names, but again, these names are words, only words. They're labels that biologists use to classify organisms that can reproduce into groups, and that's just based on the size of gamete produced. Now, if we go back to biology here, once again, talking about gamete size, I'm not talking about sex or gender, but there's a reason for this. Because an organism is labeled with a sex. It's grouped into a group called a sex by its size of gamete. And in those groups are very obvious. It's a group of organisms that create small gametes. These are labeled male. And the group of organisms that create larger gametes are labeled female. So just like we were junior physicists, I'd like to become a junior biologist. Let's test this model and see how it holds up. If we think about gamete production, let's say we have a set of parents. That set of parents has children. Look at that. Looks like gametes work the way we figured. Yippee for our side again. But wait, let's think about the children. They have not reached sexual maturity. They do not produce gametes. If gamete production is how you get classified into a group that's called a sex, are they male or female? And actually, dang, the grandparents, it turns out, are past sexual maturity. They're not making these anymore. Are they male and female? They were once making gametes, but now they're not. And unfortunately, just like with color, it gets more complicated because genetics is messy. Gamete combination is unpredictable. We have observed intersex genetic characteristics. We have observed organisms that produce no gametes. We've observed organisms that produce them both. And in nature, far more than just the human species, we've found plenty of organisms that produce the same gametes but will engage in the act of sex with each other. And there are always, of course, organisms that lose the ability to produce gametes, whether by accident or age or, say, gender affirming surgery. Well, what are some results that we can pull out of this experiment? It's that sex is not an intrinsic property of an organism. And to return to the word intrinsic, it is a property caused by the individual organism. It is something you observe independent of experimental conditions, and that is not what we've just observed. We've observed that organisms have only a potential to produce gametes. And the gamete that they produce and whether or not they do it depends on context. It depends on their own genetics, it depends on sexual maturity, may depend on many other factors. So then what really is a sex? Like a color, a sex is a definition by biologists of a range of gamete sizes in relationship to other gametes, and all of these based upon empirical properties of only the species under consideration. Well, conclusions we can draw here. Sort of like with the color, the biologist's definition of sex is necessarily accurate, is scientifically accurate, necessarily abstract, because sex is a species level characteristic. It doesn't really apply at the individual level. However, humans will apply that technical label to organisms. And this is done again for convenience. It is scientifically inaccurate and also the source of the fallacy that sex is related or even could be related to other properties of the individual organism. The takeaway I want you to take is an organism is not a sex, and a sex is not an organism. Now let's talk about gender. I wanted to wait for a moment because I wanted to divorce the biology of a species from the expression of an individual. Now it's time to discuss a definition of gender that's in line with the model I just presented. But first, let's review the models. As I've presented, neither color nor sex is intrinsic. Neither color nor sex is caused by the object being observed, and both color and sex depend on the conditions when you observe the object or the organism. However, both color and sex are used commonly as labels, and this may be convenient, but it is still scientifically accurate. And to recap, just because a word has common use, it certainly doesn't guarantee that as we use it, we're using it accurately. So let's talk about the distinction between sex and gender. If sex is a species level context sensitive characteristic, if sex is not about individuals, what the hell does each of us have? Well, what each of us has is an individual expression of our physical structure, our biochemistry, the thoughts we have, the behavior that we exhibit. And it turns out biology already has a word for that, and that word is gender. Gender is the individual level expression of sex characteristics as manifested in the reality, as biology, as cognition, as behavior, within a context, and that context is the social environment of the organism. Now, how does this definition play out in nature? Turns out we have some great examples. There is a species of fish in the Great Barrier Reef. In fact, there are a few species that we've observed. And each organism of that species is born capable of producing either gamete. So either could produce sperm, could produce ova. And the sex, the gamete that each organism produces, depends upon the social order, because it turns out there's only one male in the social order at any one time. When that male dies, one of the other females actually changes sex, changes the gamete that she produces to sperm, and now has become the male. So, if we were to generalize now the idea of gender for all of nature, sex is a potential to participate in an act of reproduction, and all of this is based on the characteristics of the species that we observe. But gender is the actual participation in a single act of reproduction based on individual characteristics as well as social characteristics. Sex is a potential, gender is an implementation. Now, as I've spoken about this and written about this in many articles, I usually get some sort of pushback. There's usually a rebellion from a group of people who believe that humans shouldn't really be considered part of nature. And in fact, this is summed up by the quote that I have as a title, where somebody said, "Yeah, but I'm not a fish." Probably not. I mean, good on you for recognizing that. And I will absolutely admit, human society is very likely to be more complicated than fish society. It doesn't take a lot of observation to see human gender is obviously nuanced. We differ in body shape, clothes, makeup we choose, hairstyle. We differ in blood concentrations of hormones. We differ in what we believe, whom we love, whom we hate. We differ in what we would love, what we desire, what motivates us, our ideal situation. And finally, we differ in the day-to-day expression of all of the above as we exist in our social environments. So, let's talk about human gender. How does this model of sex versus gender apply to humans? And what I want to do is review first existing gender theory. And I want to do this as a lead-in to discuss my own original theory of gender. So firmly in the corner of biological essentialism, we have the current anti-LGBTQ rhetoric. And this is summed up by the phrase that sex is gender and sexuality. That one letter, a doctor is going to type one letter based on the most obvious anatomy, and that's going to dictate your future. It's going to set your identity for life, your sex, your gender, your sexuality. Now, the primary issue is that human experience clearly extends past biology. It doesn't take a lot of observation, again, to see that biochemistry or hormonal balance can change cognition, can change our feelings. Each of us at least has the appearance of having free will and personal choice. And finally, this idea completely dismisses the effect that social environment can exert on each of us. So, firmly in the corner of social relativism is the theory called performativity. This is the theory originally put forth by Judith Butler in the 1990s. It starts off with the idea that gender roles are social constructs, which is a philosophical term for saying that as the society begins to use a label and accepts it as a common vocabulary term, it constructs the concept and the meaning behind the words. What this means is that gender roles are defined for us by the social environment. And there are pluses and minuses to this. The big plus is that if gender roles are a derivative of the social environment, it means that constant reinforcement is necessary, which allows gender roles to change as we've observed them through the centuries, throughout human history. The negative to this is the idea that we cannot experience or even understand what sex is. And while I agree we do not experience the species level characteristic of sex, there is absolutely an understanding and a definition for what sex is. The major issue that I have with performativity is that we are more than our social environment. This diminishes the extent to which each of us can contribute to our own identity. And just as identity extends past biology, identity extends past philosophy, language, society. We would have our identity even if we existed on a desert island. So, somewhere in the middle between biology and sociology is a theory called observable aggregates. And observable aggregates was originally developed by Simone de Beauvoir and has since been greatly expanded. But it begins with functional rules that are defined by anatomy. So if you have big muscles, you ought to go be a hunter. If you got small muscles, you ought to go be a gatherer. But gender ends up being a combination, not just of your functional role, but also the interactions you have within a society. And so as a result, you end up with this checklist of characteristics. And if you can check enough boxes with your muscles and your social interactions, you become the gender as a result of that aggregate. Now, the issue that I see is that the line gets blurred at cosmetic differences. Cosmetic, because what about our minds? What about our cognition? Certainly that informs social interaction, but we can suppress certain interactions. And if we look only at the cosmetic properties of an organism, do we have to consider, are they functional? If somebody stuffs a bra, does that person become a woman? And then furthermore, if you stuff a bra on you and appear to have breasts, is that characteristic of a gender? Are the differences that we can observe what defines a gender? What if we become surgically altered, accidentally changed? What happens? There is a fourth theory, sort of, that I call ancillary aggregates. And this is the idea that gender derives from more subtle biological characteristics than the most obvious anatomy. This is usually, these ideas come out of research that is not intended to explore gender, but rather, they get observed, and it's kind of interesting. And I've seen these be picked up by the transgender community, at least, where we observe hormonal balances. We've also observed brain structure sometimes appears to correspond to gender, even neural oscillation. And if you want to go really far, we could think about intersex characteristics, or even how gene expression is turned on and off through epigenetics, which usually is environmentally driven. Now, I think the issue is that each of these ends up as an extension of the anti-LGBTQ rhetoric. And I think it's subject to the same criticism that identity extends past biology. And I believe nobody needs to take a test in order to define who they are. So, I'm now ready to discuss my own gender theory. You may ask, why did you make something like this up? Well, I'm a scientist. I was taught that the word theory is something that explains all phenomena. And I don't think any of the 3 or 4 that I just presented explains all of human experience. And all of them do what I believe is conflate a proposed origin with its observed implementation. What does that mean? Well, let's return again to intrinsic properties. When we define color, what do we see? We see that although color is related to human light, it is certainly not defined by it. It's defined by wavelengths. Our experience of color is individual. Our experience is intrinsic, but it is not the origin. And then similarly, when we define gender, what do we observe? Again, we see that gender is related to the human experience, but it is not defined by it. We observe gender across all nature. Our experience of gender is individual. Our experience is intrinsic, but gender as a whole is not. The origin is not. So the limitations that I see in the existing gender theories, with the current anti-LGBTQ rhetoric, it's pretty obvious. Genetics may be the origin of physical human traits, including gamete production, but what each of us has is an individual genetic combination. We have an implementation. With performativity, you need to have a society that exists before the concept and meaning of gender makes sense. Although social environment is the origin of social norms, what each of us experiences is our individual behavior and language as an implementation. If you were to look at observable aggregates, that actually suffers from both issues. That biology is not predictable and gender exists outside of human behavior. And all of these existing lines of thought imply that gender is like a possession. It's something we're given or something we inherit. But I do not see gender as a possession. I see gender as a mediator, which is to say that each of us has an individual and private experience of our social environment. And then each of us has an individual and private knowledge of the person we are, what I've chosen to call the origin of identity. Gender then becomes an ongoing process of mediation. It's a negotiation between the person we know we are and what we feel safe enough expressing within our social environment. So stick that into words. Gender as a mediator implies an ongoing and individual process of negotiation that occurs between the person we know we are through our origin of identity and the level of safety that we feel expressing who that person is within the context of our social environment and the norms that exist within it. Well, how does this process work? Each of us on a daily basis tests our self-expression within our social environment. In particular, we ask ourselves, who do we know we are? What does our origin of identity tell us we must be? But just as important is, what are the expectations put on us? What can we get away with? And when the social environment rejects our attempts at self-expression, what we experience is gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is a tool that the social environment uses. And this tool is not atypical, it is natural and typical. This is just how humans develop. It so happens that when we are corrected, many people will allow themselves to be corrected. And just like in the performativity theory, what that does is allow social norms to be reinforced. We can maintain a cultural identity, but there are those of us who will not be corrected. And those people allow the social environment to evolve past social norms that have become outdated. The result of mediation is a snapshot of our current physical, cognitive, and behavioral characteristics. It is our current gender identity, but it was not our first, and it will not be our last gender identity. So what benefits do I see in the mediator theory? First and foremost, the mediator theory does not consider the origin of identity. The origin could be biochemical, genetic, psychological, spiritual. It could be any combination of those whatsoever. What the origin of identity is acknowledged as is something that doesn't change, at least not rapidly, not within the lifetime of a human being. But we know who we are, and that identity is not capricious. What the mediator theory also does not dismiss the impact of social environment. We all know that politics can change, fashion can change, social environments change, because we're not the only members. But the mediator theory acknowledges that while the social environment may change, it doesn't necessarily change us. Go back to the idea of the origin of identity. From a greater scientific standpoint, the mediator theory provides a much better evolution of human society, because critics of the LGBTQ community just love to bring up the idea, why are there still homosexual relationships? If there's no reproduction, how does this keep on coming down through the species? But it's pretty obvious. Gender is not heritable, because gender is an individual level expression of sex characteristics. And as I presented the model before, that's just the way nature is. It brings humans back into nature, not outside it. We are part of it. But an immutable origin of identity actually believes that we were born this way. This is the way we were intended to be. And thinking about these things, thinking about identity, thinking about gender is not atypical. We're not strange for considering it. Not at all, because gender and identity are normal aspects of human development. Every person on the planet, every human who is born, must engage in the process of gender. And the process never ends. Every human continually experiences and develops their identity and gender throughout life. So let's talk about this human experience. Draw some conclusions. The process of identity is not simple. It's very complicated. Each one of us is an individual who has a complex of characteristics from physical to cognitive to behavioral to spiritual, but all of these must be expressed within a greater social environment. And it is not a matter of either or. It is not body versus mind, not individual versus collective. It's not human against human. It has to be both and. Each of us has to be able to express ourselves within our social environments because identity is a universal human experience. Identity is universal. Every human has to go through this, find out what to express. And some of us, the lucky ones, the fortunate ones, we will live as the person we know we are. And some of us, the less fortunate ones, are going to accept the person who gets recommended by default by the social environment. But make no mistake, you're going to end up with an identity and you're going to end up with a gender. So what's the result of this process? People who think about themselves and accept themselves live happier lives. When you have to consider and accept who you are, you're able to engage with your life confidently. You're able to engage completely. You act with confidence. But it turns out people who accept themselves also accept others. When you have considered and accepted yourself, you expect others to do the same. There's a confirmation bias on what we already believe. But other expression is more easily accepted. We understand that there is a whole spectrum of human experience. And all of this ends as a no-lose situation. When each individual is happier, the social environment as a whole is more harmonious. And so, this is what has turned into my mission. This is what I do. My mission is twofold and is derived from the theory of identity and gender that I've just presented. The first arm of my mission is that identity is our birthright. Identity is not the domain of society. Who we are cannot belong to anybody else. The other arm of my mission is that discovering who we are and manifesting it in our lives right here, right now, today, not tomorrow, today. It is our highest moral obligation. It is the purpose of human life. It's what we were brought here to do. And so with this, I've done what I was brought here to do. And I've explained my theory of identity and gender. I hope you would like to engage more with my theories, engage more with me. If you do, there's a QR code there. My personal website, which has links to all of my social media networks. You can find that at amethysta.io. And then if you want to read the work that I do and many other contributors, you can find that at Gender Identity Today. There's a QR code, and you can find it at the URL genderidentitytoday.com. Well, with that, you've made it through this entire presentation, so I will say thank you for your experience. Thank you for your attention. Back to you, Robin.
Hello. That was great.
Thank you.
This last time, I think. Yeah, it's always. I'm really glad you did this again for us because it's always good to like refresh ourselves on these things. And I really do. I got to pay more attention this time because I wasn't like in the middle of a 24-hour straight live stream. I was
Right.
able to, like, actually, like, zone in and pay attention a little bit more this time, and, um, I'm probably even gonna watch it again because I feel like I don't feel smart enough to understand it once or twice through. I need to listen to it a couple times before it, like, actually seeps in. I also have raging ADHD, but, I really like the mediation theory. Yeah, it makes sense to me from what
Thank
I
you.
believe I understand from it. It makes sense. Um, yeah.
It's interesting to me. And I mean, I got this when I first started my own transition. I heard many people say, "Well, gender, of course, is a social construct," and I said, "What does that mean to you?" And most people go, "I don't know," which is a fair, but the idea that gender roles are constructed because it's just what we observe, it's what we accept. Like that idea is not actually new. I mean, it goes back actually to the 16th century, I believe it is. Michel Foucault. I'm horrible with French, but who originally proposed that scientific concepts, believe it or not, are social constructs. The idea that if enough people believe that something is truth, it becomes
It
truth.
becomes
Yeah. So
much
it's
like saying the
interesting.
earth is flat. Everyone accepted it as true, so it became true
Right.
for a group of people. So yeah, that makes sense.
So it is interesting. There's a lot of thought that I believe Judith Butler put into all of their theory, all of their work, and I do not mean to diminish anything Butler has done, for all of us.
Mhm.
Um, it is, I think, kind of incumbent on the rest of us to figure out, what does this mean in implementation? And I think we've it's easy to dismiss, just to say, well, if what I believe is that sex means gender, then how am I wrong? And it's like, fair enough. It's a good question. So
Yeah. And for some people, their gender aligns perfectly with their sex, and that's the norm, actually. That is what most people, I think, experience. Um,
I wonder, honestly,
I
I
wonder as
I
well
wonder.
sometimes, but if we had a completely accepting society and there was no hatred towards trans people, I wonder how many more would step outside of that binary.
I think a lot. Um, this idea of mediation. I have an example. At one point, my son. I don't even know where he got the skirt. It was an amazing, like, teal sequined, like, stretchy skirt. I don't know where they got it. I think I called them he, and I apologize. But they were gonna wear it to, like, this holiday program at school, and at the time, they would have been in kindergarten. So, puts on the skirt, comes out, says, "Hey, I'm gonna wear this, to the program." And I said, "Yeah, live it up, why not?" By the time all the children came out to, do the singing, whatever it is they did, our kid was not wearing the skirt. So when we collected them at the end of the program, I said, "What happened to the skirt?" And they said, "Well, I got there and the other guy said I'm not supposed to wear a skirt, so I took it off." And I said, "Does it bother you?" And they said, "No, not really." And I thought, wow, like that was one of the beginnings of where I went, what the hell does that mean? Because like it would have bothered me, right? I would have been like, "Oh my god, you're telling me in kindergarten? Yeah." But it didn't bother our kid. The point I want to make of this, now that I've talked about it for 3 minutes, is just to say I think many of us, we don't we're willing to explore gender. I mean, I think we are
Mhm.
hardwired for exploring gender and identity. I think we have no choice. That's just what we do.
Yeah.
And if we there are decisions we'll make that just aren't very important to us. Like to our kid, that bit of fashion just wasn't that important. And so when somebody else said, "Oh yeah, take that off," they went, "What?" Took it off. So
Wait.
I I think that's a demonstration of, we test our self-expression against, the greater social environment, and that's how we get corrected or not. I would have not liked being corrected. That would have been a long-term bit of gender dysphoria to me. I'd still be talking that through with the therapist, I think. I can't believe it, doctor. It was this great teal sequined stretch skirt. Doctor's taking notes. Really? Teal sequined? Sounds beautiful. Was.
It was, and that was the problem.
Right. The other kids told me to take it off. And now I
God.
sit before you today, a broken woman. Therapist is going, I have so much money to make off of this.
I think
Keep
that's what my
writing the
therapist
checks.
thinks about me.
Right.
It's so interesting because, like, I'm trying to think back to, like, when I was a kid because I didn't come out till later in life, and I
Mhm.
didn't have the language to come out until later in life, and I think I was telling Caden this the other day. I At least I think it was Caden. It was either Caden or Kenley, one of them. I was telling them that, like, I think part of me couldn't think about that as, like, a part of survival.
Right.
Because of the household I was in, it was very homophobic, very anti-trans. I didn't even know what trans was until I was,
Right.
like, on Tumblr at, like, 15, 16 years old. Um, and I thought it was bizarre. I was like, "This what is this?" Um, and anyways, all that to say, like, I'm thinking back, if I knew that I didn't like certain types of clothing, but I was just thinking about this the other day. I don't think it was because I didn't like that it was feminine. I don't think I really cared about that. I think I didn't like the texture. Like, I didn't like dresses, but that's because most of the dresses I was given had tulle on them. Like, they would be
Oh,
like Easter or Christmas dresses, and
sure.
that texture is just evil. I hate them. It's
Scratches
all
you up. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
awful. And we would have to wear them for a long period of time, and they were too floofy, and you couldn't, like, sit down or, like, I don't know. It was uncomfortable. I also really don't like, I don't mind even now if I found a skirt that went, like, all the way to my feet, I would probably wear it. I don't
Mhm.
like how my legs and ankles look when I'm wearing a dress or a skirt. That's a really weird thing, but, like, I'm trying to think if someone had told me not to wear something as a kid, I don't know if I would have cared if they said, like, "Oh, that's this or it's that." I think I would have cared more if they were like, "It doesn't look good on you," or something. I would have been like, "Hey."
Sure.
I don't know.
But you did bring up the level of safety that you felt, that you certainly were not gonna come out in that social environment,
Absolutely
which
not.
was Georgia, I believe, right? It was
Yes.
in Georgia. Yeah.
Georgia homeschool Christian evangelical. It
Ooh.
was just a recipe for disaster.
Mhm.
Recipe for disaster.
And that's why I think that mediation is so important because, I have spoken and I'm glad we get the chance to discuss this. I've spoken with a lot of people who are not like out transgender people who will come and say, "You know what? Am I trans enough?" And I go, "The that you ask the question already answered it." Like, yes. Well, you must be because you answered because you asked the question. But I don't want anybody to think that what I'm trying to propose is that each of us can always be exactly who we are. Safety, of course, always must come first. I mean, you can't. I I know people who are transgender sex workers in Turkey, and it is very very dangerous for them. They every day they literally go out and put their lives on the line to make money to live. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that, that mediation that's the important point. You may know you do know who you are. I'm just end it with that. You do know who you are, but don't get yourself killed,
Yeah.
because there's a better place that you can get to. And then you can go nuts, shave your eyebrows and
Exactly.
don't
You
know where the
know,
hell that came from.
dye your hair blue like every trans person apparently does,
I
including
got,
me. My hair is blue.
yeah, it's true. I mean, I got the purple because, but it is blue based. So
Yeah, you
it's
can see like a
sufficient.
reflection of blue almost.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're just on that border where you're almost trans. No, no, I'm kidding.
Oh crap, I hope so. God, there's a lot that I've been doing that I really hinges on this idea that I'm transgender. So, but yeah, the level of safety I think is somewhat dismissed. I know I have seen people who are like, look, if you're transgender, you go transition. And it's like, really? Should we say that to Brandon Tina? Do we want
Yeah,
to bring up the other people whom we commemorated, memorialized last Transgender Day of Remembrance? It's not easy. It's not easy, and it's not something that you should enter into lightly.
absolutely. And
I brought the
yeah,
room down.
that's a huge point of thing. Like even when I came out the first time, I only came out to like two or three people, and they weren't necessarily like terrible about it. Like it was about what I expected from my Christian homeschool friends, you know? Because that's like the only people I knew at the time. And so I was like, hey, I think I'm non-binary. And one of them was like, well, I think that's stupid, but I still love you.
Oh my
And I was
gosh.
like, okay. And another was like, well, I believe it's a sin, but like again, I still love you. And like stayed stayed my friend. We still talk sometimes today,
Oh, okay.
It's interesting. And there were some who didn't bring it up at all. There was one family that I was super close to, and I was most worried about how they would react, just all of them.
Yeah.
And the first time, because I used to have sleepovers with their daughter all the time, and the first time after I had like transitioned, like my beard had come in and everything, and I was like, maybe I'll go have a sleepover with her again. And her mom was just like, so, I had always stayed in her room with her. Like, it was like a bunk bed. I would stay on the bottom bunk or whatever. And we would just talk all night, basically. And the first time after that, she was like, okay, so, you can sleep on the couch or you can go downstairs. And that was the only time that I realized that she was actually going to treat me like a
Yeah.
guy. I was so surprised. She was
It
like,
was
like any
validation.
other just like any other guy that was sleeping over could not sleep in
Right.
our daughter's room.
Right.
We were both like 18 by this point, but still, like she's like, you're not staying in my daughter's room because you're a guy. So you can sleep downstairs in the guest bedroom or you can sleep on the couch. I don't care. And I
I
was
think
like,
that's
are
awesome.
you actually treating me like a person right now? And
Yeah.
I hate that I phrase it like that because they never didn't treat me like a person. But just being in that environment, I was so surprised by how some of the adults reacted
Yeah.
because of how steeped in that community they were.
Oh,
It
sure.
was mind
Sure.
blowing. So,
Yeah.
so all of that to say, essentially, safety is a big thing, but also some people may really surprise you. You got to gauge
Yes.
it like at your own pace, but some people
Yeah.
may really surprise you. That family in particular really surprised me
Yeah.
as like how well they handled it, I guess, for lack of a better word. And my own family handled it about as badly as I thought they would,
Mm,
for the most part. And yeah, but some people will surprise you probably.
I agree. I mean, when I came out, so I mean, I originally came out to people I knew. I mean, I was 23, 24. Yeah, like 23. This was 1994, I guess. Well, it was actually even a little bit earlier, but when I was in graduate, interestingly in Georgia. So as I went to University of Georgia for graduate school, and when I came out, at some point, just people were like, "Hey, you seem kind of odd," and I'm like, "Well, I'm pansexual and transgender." And I didn't have either of those two words, but said something like that. And for the most part, what people did was go, "Yeah, well, just from California." And like that was it. Like that was the end of the concern. It was, yeah, just wearing a skirt, you know. Or probably they said he's wearing a skirt. Yeah, he's wearing because they used to have this beautiful velvet, like stretchy skirt. Oh, it's so great.
Mm,
Yeah, and I know I went to a party and somebody was just like, "Oh, yeah, gosh, from California." So, but then when I decided to transition, I was actually very surprised by the support that I got, like a good amount of support. And
yeah.
so I'll reiterate what you're saying, Robin, which is that there is an element of safety that we cannot deny. Don't do something stupid. That being said, I think there are many people who will surprise you. People whom you think are going to go, "Oh yeah, get out of my life." Who will just go, "Yeah, really? May I ask you questions? May I understand this better?" And you just go, "Yes." Oh my god, yes.
Oh, thank
Thank you.
goodness.
Right.
It's one of those things like you expect a huge amount of loss, and you do usually get a huge amount of loss. I mean,
Yeah.
almost every single person who has transitioned that I've ever talked to has been like, yeah, I lost everybody, or I lost
Mhm.
a significant number of my friends and family,
Yeah.
who won't even talk to me anymore and unfriended me on all of the social media platforms,
Oh
whatever their
gosh.
story may be. Like they won't even interact with them anymore,
Yeah.
and that's a huge thing to prepare for. And again, I will continue to say there are people that really will surprise you, and
Right.
you
Right.
will have no idea until you come out
So you try? Yeah.
who you can trust. And what I did
Right.
was I actually this is a longer story for another time, but the very basic summary is that I came out and I cut contact with every single person I knew, except for like 3 people, and I moved across the country without telling anybody I was leaving.
Oh
And I
gosh.
deleted all of my social media, emails. I broke my phone so that they couldn't track me via my SIM card. I left the car behind so
Oh
that they
my
couldn't say that, like, I stole the car.
wow.
I left everything, took my ID documents, and moved to another state and didn't look
Wow.
back. And I slowly, like, as I felt safer, slowly contacted a handful
Mhm.
of people each month, from most likely to be safe to talk to least likely to be safe to talk to. And there are people that I still haven't contacted because they're not safe to talk to. And it's been
Sure.
4 years now,
Oh gosh.
four in like 2 weeks, I think. 5 years, maybe 5 years.
5. Oh
If
my
I'm doing
gosh.
math right. Yeah, 5 years, almost 5 years. So it's been 5 years since I've talked to most of my family, who are
Wow.
still not safe to talk to. But
Yeah.
yeah, so if I'm not necessarily saying that's the best way to do it. I definitely stressed a lot of people out, that maybe didn't need that stress. But if that's how you've got to do it, that's how you got to do it. Like
Yeah.
slowly
Yeah.
reintroduce yourself to people in a safe way. And you could probably do that without doing everything I did. There was a whole lot of other reasons why I did it that way. But yeah, I mean, if anybody needs any tips on how to delete yourself from the world, and move somewhere else without people knowing, I got you.
Yeah, send a note. But
Exactly. Send an email.
y you know, though, I mean, there for what it's worth, I mean, we face a lot of ridicule, we face a lot of hate, we face sometimes even danger from those who should love us anyway. And I don't know about you, Robin, but I think I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt, this has all been worth it for me.
Oh, absolutely. Everything that I have done was for the betterment of myself and my mental health.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I mean, I look back and there are things I wish I still had that I gave up to transition.
Yeah.
Um, but I gained safety in so many ways.
Yeah.
And because of that, I am now here in California instead of Georgia, and I have an amazing job with amazing coworkers in the art industry. And this is just, I mean, it opened me up to be able to create this nonprofit and all of these things that would not have happened at all if I had stayed where I was, I was on track to become a psychologist, therapist.
Hmm.
That was like my major. And I was like 1 year away from completing it. So I guess I could go back and finish that out if I really wanted to, but I don't. Um, I was on track to be a closeted straight woman with
Right.
my high school sweetheart that we had been together for 10 years. We wanted to have like so many kids. And
Oh my
I
gosh.
see that path that I could have taken. And I know now that I would not have been happy. And it was bound to implode sooner or later. And I'm glad
Hmm.
I changed my direction when I did because
Yeah.
it hurt so much and it only would have hurt more if I kept going.
Right.
And I think everyone just has to make those decisions for themselves. But to answer
Hmm.
your question, yes, it's all been worth it. And despite all of the hurt, it's amazing. It's
Right.
amazing the life that we have now, you know?
I think if you had not done it then, you would have ended up 52 years old like I was, a man waiting to die, as opposed to now 2 years later, a
Yeah.
woman gearing up to live.
Yeah.
So, I keep on bringing the room down. Jeez, what the hell?
Time
Is
for
there
dares.
something like, can we do something
We're
dumb
both like
now?
about to start crying. We're like, anyways,
Is
so
my gravy in here? I'm gonna go get a stiff drink.
oh goodness. Yeah. It's good to have these conversations though. Like it's important, especially like trans person. Like we are the only people who will understand each other. Like cis people, gay
Yeah.
people, they only get so much of it and
Yeah,
they can only
right.
relate to so much. It's so important to continue having conversations amongst ourselves as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. I think anybody can understand gender dysphoria because I think everybody experiences it. Like, 'cause that was, I think, what happens to my kids, with the skirt, and then the other kids say, "No, don't wear that." And there was probably a moment or 2 where maybe our kid was like, "Oh, dang," because it was like nice teal sequins, but it went away quickly. So I think each of us can understand the idea of not fulfilling a social role, but the idea of never being capable of fulfilling a social role is certainly more rarefied,
Mhm.
or maybe
Before I
just
forget,
rare.
it actually doesn't show me the comments from Instagram on StreamYard, and so I
No.
just checked. We only have one, so we haven't missed a time, but we have one from Morgan, who is watching again. Thank you for joining us. Asked, can we willingly change it, or was it always the way it was? I think they're referring to gender, but this was a question during your presentation, I believe.
Morgan, can you clarify a bit? So it's coming from Instagram?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see. I'll keep it open and check back as we talk. But yeah, can we willingly change it, or was it always the way it was? We'll see.
I take the guess that it's origin of identity.
Mm,
If I were gonna make a dumb guess, it may not be a dumb guess. And actually, for what it's worth, I think that's a great question, assuming that's what it is. I actually I 'cause I've gone pretty far with the idea of what origin of identity and then that mediation does in terms of gender and then how that relates to sexuality, which I didn't talk about at all. Because there's I think there's a relationship with the mediation between the gender we express and the people we find attractive. So sexuality. But I think all of this there's something I wrote in my journal. I was thinking about publishing it this coming Tuesday for what it's worth about how all of our experience continues to like I think of it as, as a technology person, I said, but I consider it like we have this database of experience, and that database of experience doesn't go away. And so as our origin of identity is interacting with a social environment, we can draw on our experiences and continue to do so. And so as a result, can we change it? I don't think we can change our origin of identity, but I believe the data can get so bad that we go, I would never do that again. Oh, here we go. Okay.
I moved it
Individual
here.
source. Okay. So So I think this is a great question too. So it's different from my from what I was saying, but it, can the gender change? Can the gender change? I would say absolutely, because really what we have is a gender identity, and that gender identity is a snapshot, and it's a snapshot that's applicable today. Like today, I have purple hair because this is dye, Robin. It's fake. So
The scandal.
I know, but it's fake. But today I have purple hair. Tomorrow maybe I'll have green hair, and that is a different expression. I'm not going to have green hair. What the hell am I saying? Let me use something different. Maybe I'll change my makeup tomorrow. But that's the snapshot of the day. And your gender identity, my opinion, changes where you go too. Because like for the longest, and when I was doing voice training, I would talk to my voice therapist and I would sound like this and I had great resonance and I would say, hello, whatever, read heat with fire, fire with heat, or whatever the hell it is. Forgive me. And then I would go upstairs and see my wife and go, yeah, hello, how you doing? Anyway, the kid get off to school. Good. It changes even if you just walk upstairs. So it depends, our social environment is so constantly changing that, yes, I think the gender identity changes. So maybe that's what I should say. Gender itself is only a process, but the gender identity is a snapshot. Yeah, most certainly. So, oh gosh, whew, you're going into some deep stuff. So my opinion, I'm extemporizing on this. My opinion, I'm not really extemporizing because I've written 2 articles, but I haven't presented it. My opinion is that this process of mediation, what we do is we observe the social environment and we see what are things that look good to us. I've called it a concept of beauty. I don't know if that's the greatest term for it, but I don't have a lot of better ones. So, but beauty is just anything. Your hair color, it could be an action. Somebody's good at playing chess. I don't really care what it is, but something that you find attractive. And when you express those yourself, that is what creates gender identity. So that aggregate of what you find beautiful ends up being your gender identity. And that's why when somebody has said to me before, you're not transgender if you don't transition, I go, bullshit. Because cognitively, you are transgender, even if your physicality right now doesn't describe, somebody who would fill some social role. Bullshit. So conversely, sorry, I'll step off my soapbox, everybody. So conversely, what we find attractive in other people, I think, is what ends up defining our sexuality. But all of these are concepts of beauty that we bounce off with our origin of identity. So anyway, to go back to it, can you change sexuality? I believe is how it was put. I believe the answer is yes, because for what's confession time, Robin, when I was, I don't know, 24, 25, long time ago, back in the olden days again, there was a guy I dated, okay, that later on I was really just horrified that I'm like, I cannot believe. At the time, I was just kind of going, hey, look, I can be pansexual, right? So I'll fuck anything. Forgive me. I don't know if we should
It's
don't
fine.
bleep that is. But I'm like, oh, if you like me, yeah, let's have sex. I'm fine. And then later on went, not really. And I thought about it afterwards. And it was like, the reason why I was attracted to this one man was wholly internal. Because I just went, look, masculine, go. And then later on thought about it and went, well, it didn't really conform to, or didn't really, tick any boxes that I thought of as beautiful. So that's why I was slightly horrified after the fact. So I think the answer is yes, sexuality can change. And it's because this database is always growing. Your group of experiences and your origin of identity form a system. And I'll write that article, Morgan, and hopefully I'll
There's
explain it better. But
the thing I'm thinking of is there's a surprisingly large number of trans people who, when they transition, their sexuality changes,
Yeah.
or their perceived sexuality changes, however you want
Yeah.
to look at it. Um, I wonder if it's more of like we haven't found our true sexuality yet, or if it shifts over time based on experiences,
Right.
or if we truly can choose our sexuality, like the bigots want to say that we can,
Well,
or
I
maybe a
don't think it's a
combination of all of the above.
right. I don't think it's a choice. I mean, I think that origin of identity that helps us figure out what we find attractive doesn't change. But I think sooner or later, to return to that idea of safety. Because I mean, like if I were to go out, like let's say 2 years ago, as this 52-year-old dying man, I went out and found some guy and was smooching. Sorry, kids, this is what the older people say. If I were to
Smooching.
do right? If I were smooching a guy in the middle of the mall, I can see people walking past and going, "Oh, what the hell? Get a room. At least do it elsewhere. In fact, don't do it at all because it's grody." But I think if I were to do it now, there's a greater level of safety because I think people would walk past and go, well, I don't know. I see somebody in a skirt with longer hair smooching, and that's okay. So I think there's an aspect of safety involved in it as well. It- I think as evolve, we evolve what can evolve, even for what it's worth. That came out sounding sort of weird, but I think as we learn more, it's like we learn what we can learn, and some of this is informed by the idea of an agile software development process, Morgan. But I think we figure it out as we go along. So, the end.
Morgan
Sorry.
says that was a great explanation, and she
Thank
is
you.
looking forward to the article.
To the article, yeah. Now I'll have to actually transcribe that, and damn, I
Like,
was going to do it anyway. No, I was going to do it anyway because I don't have any really good thoughts going on. I wrote that down like 2-3 weeks ago because now I'm doing so many, like too many things, and not to be bitchy moany, like I'm sitting here right now, and
Same. I am doing a lot. I am crazy for doing all of this right while I'm finishing up my thesis and everything. Oh, God.
right,
I'm gonna lose my
right,
mind. But before I lose my mind, we're gonna lose our minds in a different way and do some dares.
okay,
Transition. A kind of transition, I guess.
sure. I'm already concerned for what it's worth, but
Some of again, they're not bad ones. Thankfully, we got some
okay.
some nice
Oh,
easy dares. People aren't
oh,
being mean to us. They're not being evil.
sure.
Um, well, some of them are funny and involve other people. So the first one is call someone and when they answer, say that you can't talk right now.
I'll do this.
I think that's fun. I think we should each do that one.
Sure.
I think that would be
Um,
fun.
I just got to find the right person.
Right. I think we can choose the person, thankfully.
Good, good.
They're not like
I I
pulling
have
up
a
your
great I have a great
roll call
choice.
or something. Like that would be terrible.
I have a great choice. Do you want to go first? You want me to?
Go for it. I know what I'm
Okay.
doing. I don't know if they're gonna
All right.
answer, but we'll see.
I don't even care. In fact, it'd be fun. Hang on, let me do it. Let's see what happens. Here we go.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you who I'm calling. Hang on. Ooh, yeah. Hey, Caden, listen, I'm sorry. I can't talk right now. Okay. Okay. Bye.
I knew it was gonna be Kaden. I wonder if they're still watching or if he's just
I
like,
don't know. I don't know. I'm hoping not. I hope right now Caden's going, the
huh?
hell? But
At best he does know that we're doing dares right now, so
what I would really adore, I was hoping I could go first because I figured you should go. because I figured you should call him. You should go, hey, listen, I can't.
Oh, goodness. All right. We're going to try my friend. I'm going to FaceTime, actually. Oh, wait.
Oh,
I'm
gosh,
feeling
you're going to do
sick.
FaceTime
Okay.
even.
Well, we'll see. Ken said, I walked away for 5 minutes. Hey, I can't talk right now.
Oh my gosh.
They were in the car, they were like, hello? They said jail. Straight to jail.
Oh gosh.
Okay, I just wanted to let them know that I was doing a dare. Cool. Well, that was fun. I love these.
Oh boy.
All
That was
right.
where did that come from? Do we have names, or are you not willing to? Maybe we shouldn't divulge this.
Yeah. I don't know. I would have to go into all the things.
That was
Let's
a funny
see.
one though.
And I actually don't remember some of these I threw in, just to kind of like fill time. And I don't remember which ones I did and which ones were given to us. All right. Tell an embarrassing story from middle or high school.
Mm.
I have a really good one, I think.
Okay, you go first. I'm gonna have to. It's been so long. I don't remember. So.
Mhm. I mean, it could probably be an embarrassing story from any time, honestly. Anyways, I actually don't remember if mine was from middle school or high school. It was one of the two. I just don't remember which of the two. But it's really hard to embarrass me because I was homeschooled. And you just get a really high like embarrassment tolerance living in that environment. You're always around your parents so they can't like make you
Oh, yeah, it's a good point.
uncomfortable really because it's literally just everyone's just always with their parents and so like everyone's like yeah my parents are like that too it's crazy nobody's really embarrassed um anyway so I would say this is like the least fun to tell people and that's why I will call it embarrassing but
Mhm.
it was I was in high school band I think it was high school at least um and during a concert I went on knowing that I was very sick like really really sick and
Okay.
by that I was like I played trumpet and also clarinet at that point and I was like taking what are they called? The little cough drops, like every 5 seconds. Like the second it was gone, I was taking another one so I wouldn't cough
Oh
and
gosh.
disrupt the entire
Sure.
concert with like loud coughs. And it's
You
massive.
were chain lozenging. I get it. Okay.
Exactly, chain lozenging. And so I was taking more and more and more. And I was like, man, I feel like I really need to sneeze, but it went away. And I was like, okay, fine. And so I go up on stage. This was with I want to say the advanced band at that point with my clarinet. And I am like in the very back row, thankfully. No one was behind me, even percussion, because they were all the way to the other side. They couldn't see me. The only person who really had visibility to me at this point was the marching band director, who I
Mhm.
had known since I was a child. So thankfully, she was like a mother to me. Um, I don't know if she saw anything that happened that I'm about to tell you, but she was the only one who could have seen. And if she did, she never told me, and I appreciate that so much. But what happened was right as the music started, I didn't have a spot in like a piece that I was supposed to play right at the beginning. It was like a couple of holds of counts. But right as the music started, I had to sneeze like really, really bad. And so I did. And I mean, it just kept coming out. I mean, like there was so much snot. So I was like wiping it off of my face and it was covering my face. Like, I mean, it was like, I probably looked like I popped bubble gum on my face. Like, it was just all over. And so I was wiping it, and I was wiping it on my good skirt, like my band
Right.
performance skirt,
Right.
and then I was like, "Okay, now my hand is covered in it," and I was still wiping, and I had to keep going, so I was, like, wiping it on the chair because my skirt was now covered in it, and it was still not gone, and it was just snot everywhere, and I was like, "What do I do?" And it was just still coming. I don't know what was going on. It was the most I had ever produced in my entire life, and so I was just like, and just wiping it everywhere, and then just, like, going back to my room to play, and I was like, "I have to pretend like this never happened." And to my knowledge,
Right.
nobody saw unless my sweet band director saw it and never said anything. But, I did not like it in the moment. I can look back and be like, "Yeah, that was just a stupid thing, and I couldn't have helped it, like, it's fine." But, in the moment, I was like, "If anybody sees me just
Oh,
hurling balls of
horrific.
snot at the chair," and I feel really bad for anyone in a lead band who had to sit on that chair after I was sitting on it. I feel so bad. But I also wasn't about to carry the chair off with me.
No,
Like,
certainly not.
it was so bad. It was ridiculously bad. So, I would say that's my embarrassing story.
Oh gosh.
That's the one I can think of at least.
I was hoping you were gonna say, so I started playing the trumpet. I don't know how you do it. Sorry. I started playing the trumpet. Sure, whatever it takes. I don't know. But I was hoping you would be like up so that like something actually after the sneeze goes, "Whew."
Oh, and, like, shoots out. That would have been so funny.
Yes. Ooh,
I
could you
actually would have been proud of that. I wouldn't have thought that as an embarrassing
all
moment. I
right.
would have been like, "That's
Hmm,
funny."
all right. Well, it's true. I suppose if you're able to do that kind of thing, people should go, hey, look, like, well done. I
Like,
mean, wow.
that's because it has to go through so many valves that if you were able to shoot
Yes.
something out, like, that's
Right.
that's accomplishment, honestly.
You have an amazing pressure, from your diaphragm. Well done. You should become a singer, maybe opera singer.
I know flute players in the marching band, they used to have contests to see how far they could like, fling their spit out of their
Ew.
instrument in the field. So, honestly, that was kinda pretty normal, but yeah. Band
I mean, it
kids
was
can be
normal for
kinda nuts.
band. Yeah.
Normal for
So,
band, yes, normal for
yeah,
band. Band kids are
that's
weird, I will attest to that.
that's
We
weird.
were very strange people. We still
Yeah, that's
are.
odd.
We are all very strange people still, but
I
yeah.
if I got a crap story now. Like now I'm sort of like, God, I wish I could come up with something better, but I kind of can't. Um, because I was, super dorky. I was gonna say super dorky then, but really it's sort of like, it's like that's changed, right? Yes, he played the sax, right? Um, when when I was in junior high, so there was all right, so I was dorky, right? Didn't have a lot of interactions with people, but I did have these big, huge, thick glasses.
Mm.
And when I was in junior high, I don't know what the hell compelled me, but I thought, you know what I'm going to do? You know those like nerdy, like they're cool now. Like if you're a hipster, you're going to get the big, thick frame. Looks like you just stepped out of like, what was that that space movie? Like Apollo 13 or no, it
Mm.
was 1970s, wasn't it?
That's a
Anyway,
good memory though. Oh,
right? I know it was a great film, but those glasses. So I thought, oh my gosh, you know what? I'm like 12 years old. This is going to help, you know, me stop being so dorky. I wasn't the smartest kid, apparently, in seventh grade, but hasn't changed, hasn't improved a lot. But so I put these glasses on, and they're like horn rimmed. Horn. That's what they were called. They were called horn
Oh,
rimmed glasses, chunky, big horn rimmed glasses. And I remember I went to school, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm pretty much all that, right? And there were two girls. I want to say it was Cindy and Denise. I think those were their two names. And I'm like, I can see their faces. One was taller than I was, and the other one was thin and rat faced. I'm sorry, whoever you were. At least I don't remember your name, right?
unless you did.
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to say it. That was the
Oh,
thing. Because I think it was Laura. but I wasn't gonna like, say the rest of it. But so I think it was Cindy and Laura, Cindy and Denise. It's not that important, but I
Yeah.
remember I came walking out of some class and they were both standing there and they went, Birdman. And I go, the flying hell? What are they? And then I realized, oh God, they're pointing at me. And the two of them like followed me from this class to my locker,
Oh
pointing
my
and
god.
chanting, Birdman, 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 until finally I turned around and I said, will you fuck off? And they both went,
That's amazing.
Birdman, Birdman. I'm like, oh, I can't believe it. It's all the way to my locker, and people are just like, huh, yeah, those aren't great glasses, by the way. And I had to wear them for a year because, I grew up fairly poor. We weren't going to buy another goddamn bad pair of glasses just because I looked like Birdman, apparently. Who knows? So,
Like, sucks to suck, I guess. You gotta deal with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was
People are
awful.
so
That was
mean.
not a Yeah, well, what the hell? I don't know why kids do this to each other, but they do. And actually adults do too, come to think of it. It's not like that's gotten any better.
Adults, yeah, adults are actually sometimes worse because they have had time to think of worse insults. Like, in the
Greater
grand scheme of things,
vocabulary.
yeah,
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, Birdman isn't, like, the worst that you could be called for sure, but, like,
No.
it definitely sucked at that age, I'm sure. That probably didn't feel great.
Oh
Um,
no. Oh no. And anytime I saw either of those two girls, they go, oh, Birdman. How are you, Birdman?
terrible.
And it was really kind of funny because one of the girls like these, because would have been God, the 1980s, and had these glasses that no shit were probably this one. I'm looking at my picture here, were probably this big on her face. And yeah, it's probably like when bottom of the cheek to like above eyebrows. Okay. Cause it was in an 80s style. Like apparently somebody thought it was cool. It wasn't, just so you know. But she was very, very farsighted. So her eyes looked like they were this big. And I thought, how am I the Birdman? You look like an owl. You're like, how am I the Birdman here? But once you've had people chant at you, like walking down a hall, like you can turn around and go, well, you look like an owl. And it sounds very weak. It's very,
Yeah,
very, very weak.
that's true, that's true. Sometimes
So,
comebacks are only good if you're the first person to say
oh
something.
my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. If I could have ripped it off right there, it said, all right, I'm hearing this from Owl Girl. I don't know how to insult Cindy. Sorry, Cindy. I'll think about you more next week, maybe.
Right. I'll think about a better insult for you.
Yeah, I'll come up with a worse one for you. Ooh, you know what? What I can do is call her up and then go, hey, Cindy, here's your insult. But look, I really can't talk right now, okay? All right, yeah,
And she's like, "Who is this?
bye. Right.
Who was this person?" And it
Hi,
was like you
Cindy.
found the wrong number too. It's not even the right person.
That would be even better, yes.
That
Who
would
the
be
hell's
hilarious.
Amy? What? Do you know an Amy? No, never heard of
It's like some old man answers the phone. Is like, I have no idea who you're talking about.
her. Guess what? I'm not Amy. Or I'm not Cindy. Oh,
Right?
damn.
Are
Oh,
you trying
well.
to order a pizza? It's like a pizza hut or
Right.
something. I don't know who you're talking about. Oh no,
All right, what else? What else do
yeah.
we have here?
Okay, this one is more of a question than a dare, but if any character in Star Wars was trans, who would it be? I think that one's kind of fun to think about.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to think of it if anyone was queer coded enough for me to think that they were trans.
Yeah. I think I would say Leia sort of gave off, like to my mind, lesbian type vibes because she did
Yeah,
not seem super interested in Han Solo. Like it
no.
seemed like he was always like
Um,
dragged out of her. Right? He's dying, and she'll go, "I love you,"
right,
and
like
Han
she's like,
Solo's like,
yeah,
"I know."
if
All
I
right, you
mom.
smarmy bastard.
I
But
was thinking
who
this
else?
this character is not really in the movies, so I don't know how many people will know this character, but there was one from like the Clone Wars on Cartoon Network that I really liked called Asajj Ventress. And
Mm.
I don't know, gave me very like non-binary vibes. Um, just like they were a villain. I think in the show they were a she, but she was a villain, but she had like a shaved head and she had like a really deep voice
Oh, wow.
and but like wore semi-feminine, like what would be considered feminine in the Star Wars era clothing, I think. But it could
Sure.
also just be like chalked up to ancient, Greek styles where they would wear sort of like dress type things even as men, as warrior
Sure.
men.
Sure.
So I don't know. I just was like, are you really cis? Are you really a cis character? I feel like that would be the one I would choose. And then like you never really know what like the alien characters are because they're
Right.
alien.
Right. Can I throw out a theory?
Yes, go for it.
I have the feeling that Darth Maul actually was transgender.
I could see that. I could
He
see
got
that.
him. He got really truly amazing bottom surgery.
That was not what I expected. Wow.
you start you
No, no. I was like, no, I could see that. It's like a
you
he's like
start
a rounder
well,
face, and
no,
I
you
could,
started saying something serious, and I don't know if you saw my face, but you started saying something serious, and I went, Darth Maul's bottom surgery. And I went, and I even put myself on mute for a moment because I'm like, I'm gonna have to say this. I think Darth Maul was trans because look at the bottom surgery he got.
no, that's a good one actually. That could be said for probably every clone as well.
Yeah, good point. I don't know. Would every clone? Does every clone? I don't know. Does that qualify as? I don't know. I was gonna say intersex, but I'm not even
I'd say
because like
asexual
clones.
reproduction, right?
Yeah, well, not even
Right?
really asexual. I mean, the cloning process is no parent really,
Oh,
but
that's true.
I guess that wouldn't because I don't know a ton about the clones, but I want to believe they were all bred somehow because like Jango Fett was like some virile looking dude, right?
Yeah.
But I want to say I don't. Apparently, this is what virile looking dudes do. There's a reason why I failed at that. So, but I want to say that aren't the clones ended up being bred somehow or modified in some way. They don't actually have
Remember.
reproductive parts. I think.
Oh,
Isn't
no,
that?
I think you're right. I think you're right.
I think.
That sounds about, if my
I
husband was
know.
here, I would
Now we
ask him
got to look it up,
because
right?
he knows so much more about Star Wars than I do. Um,
Uh,
I, yeah.
when I was going through my presentation earlier, because I wanted to do at least like one practice run again, because I'm like, I don't remember a goddamn thing. I was going through and I was like, oh, Star Wars. Well, at least that worked out. Like it looks timely. People are gonna go, damn, did she do this just for wow, Star Wars reference and everything? Nah, it's been in there the whole time.
I love it though. I was
Thank
like,
you.
hey, look, that fits with the theme of
I
today.
know.
It's also National Orange Juice Day for anyone who doesn't know, and you should drink orange juice. I already did. I already drank the rest of my orange juice this morning,
Oh,
so
that's right.
make sure to celebrate that too.
What I may actually do is take orange juice day and combine it with champagne day
There
and
you go.
have a mimosa. Say screw it to orange juice. I don't give a crap about vitamin C, but vitamin A, vitamin alcohol, that one, and vitamin E. I said, crap, both of those are in use. Vitamin A or vitamin ethanol. Damn it. Vitamin ETOH. All right, I'm done. Go ahead.
Vitamin E.
Clones.
And then people are like, "Oh, are you talking about crypto or something?" I don't know.
No, just getting drunk.
Just getting drunk. That's what people
Not
who find crypto
interesting.
do.
Right. Right.
I
Right.
say as someone who did used to buy crypto. We're so
Really?
ADHD. I did.
Did you buy it on a dare?
No, I actually I had I guess I could call him a boss. I did work for this person who paid me in crypto for a while.
Oh,
I was like
wow.
their
Okay.
virtual assistant, and it was right as COVID started, so it was great because that's
Oh,
when
yeah.
everybody got into crypto, and so it actually
Right.
skyrocketed. And then I sold it. He was also a psychic, and he told me when to sell it, and I actually
Wow.
made like several $1,000s, and I
Oh,
was
dang.
very happy. So,
Yeah.
but I would not do it now. There's not going to be another boom like that like ever again because hopefully, God forbid another coronavirus happens, but
You're right.
you know, it was good for when it was, but I would not gamble again like that. That would not be smart.
Would you roll the
Um,
dice on a dare? What?
if somebody dared me to put a small amount into crypto and see where it led,
Sure.
I sure, fine.
$5.
Right. Someone
$5.
dare us to do that. Um, and we'll keep track of it over the weeks. We'll be like, all right, next week. Oh, I made 3 cents.
Right.
Woo.
Thanks a lot, whoever gave. What would be great is if there were like this sudden boom, and you're like, my
Right.
$5 is now like 50 grand. You're like,
Right.
whoever it was dared us. Thank you.
Thank you. We can build this museum now.
Right. Turns out to be turns out to be that old boss.
Exactly.
Right.
Everyone watching, go spend $1 to dare us to do crypto, and you'll be the reason that our museum happens. That's the moral of this
Right.
story.
Like it's perfect.
Exactly,
All
because
worked
either
out
we
for the
will make
best.
$50,000 and 50,000 people daring us, or we will make it through crypto, or both.
Either is fine.
Combination.
Totally fine.
Okay, so we have name 15 Star Wars characters. There are a lot of Star Wars sequence today.
Oh, God. Okay.
Trying to think.
15.
I think we should go back and forth. What do you think?
Okay. No,
Okay,
that works for me.
I'll start with Yoda, an easy one.
Good one. Mace Windu with a purple lightsaber.
Oh, of course, yes. Um,
We had two.
where to? My personal favorite, um, and of course I'm gonna forget his name now. that I'm thinking
Oh,
about it.
what do you look
Ah,
like?
he was Obi-Wan's mentor.
Qui-Gon
And
Jinn.
Qui-Gon, yes, Qui-Gon, my favorite. I guess that's
So
kind of yours. You said
so
it.
nerdy. Oh, well,
I'll say
okay,
I'm
okay.
Obi-Wan, you said Qui-Gon, so that's 4,
Oh,
I
okay.
guess.
We'll do that.
We'll
That's
go that
fine.
way.
um, I'm gonna go with Darth Vader because not
Yeah.
not only did I wear purple now, but I used to be all black, and so Darth
Mm,
Vader was kind of a fun one. So I have 5.
there you go, 5. Han Solo, of
Han
course.
Solo. There we go. Yeah, let me try to. How about Ahsoka Tano? Just
There
because
you go. So
nobody's gonna say anybody. Like so far, we haven't gotten a woman in here, so
there we go.
there aren't a
Jabba.
lot, are they?
Jabba.
Ooh, Jabba the Hutt. Yeah,
Good one.
totally. Um, I want to bring up Lobot,
Oh, that's a good one.
who was Lando Calrissian's assistant on Cloud City, right?
There you go.
I had a ton of Star Wars figures growing up. Okay, my kid has
Um,
them now, so All right, what
I'm
do you
thinking
got?
I had one and then I lost it, so I'm just gonna say C3PO.
C3PO is fine.
Good one.
I will follow that up with another droid. I'll use IG-88,
There you go.
who was one of the bounty hunters that Darth Vader talks to, to
Mm,
go find Han Solo, to go and get Han Solo. So IG-88 is a good one.
that is a good one. I was trying
All
to
right.
remember that one guy's name. I think his name is oh Grotto. Is Grotto? Mm,
The guy who owns Anakin at the beginning.
yeah, yeah.
Is it Watto? I think it's Watto,
Watto.
maybe.
Watto.
Okay. So what do we got? We got 11. No, 12.
12. 12.
Not a mathematician, folks. Neither of us. So
Nope. Not
12,
even close.
11, same damn thing to us. All right, I got to come up with something. See, the thing is now somebody's going to send a dare. It's like integrate overall space. You know, oh, come on. What? I thought there was going to be no math.
Right.
Who's another good one?
Tried to do a math equation and we're both like, ah.
Right, that'll be the end of me. I'm like, oh, I gotta go get somebody who knows math, honey.
Right. My husband
Shoot.
is equally as bad at math, so that would be cool.
Oh, like my wife is a whiz, so she's probably
good.
right now watching, going, "Oh, don't bring me into this." Come on, I gotta get a good one. Who's a good one from? Who's a good one from The Empire Strikes Back? Oh wait, how about Grand Moff Tarkin, the guy who ends up signing the order to destroy Alderaan? Right there, you go.
Did I already say Jar Jar? I don't think I said Jar Jar.
No, but why did you?
I love Jar Jar. I know everybody hates
Did
them.
you? Okay. No,
I
that's
love
cool. No, run with it. You know, who cares? And I guess,
That's
you know, if we're getting close.
another queer-coded character. I will say that. I feel like Jar Jar's queer.
Actually, I'll go with you on that. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'll go with you on
why,
that.
but gives me queer vibes. I don't know what kind of queer, but
I wish I knew the name. Do you remember who the king of the Jar Jars, the king of the Binks? The Bink King. Does he have a name?
I think he does.
He like shakes his jowls and like saliva's flying all over. Yes,
yes.
That's the guy. That's the guy.
I don't remember his name.
I wish I knew the name of that guy or that annoying kid, the annoying little rat guy in Jabba the Hutt's palace who would go, "Yee." That's all he did, you know.
Right.
You're like, what the hell? Why is he here? It's like, I thought I was watching Star Wars or Return of the Jedi, not the Dark Crystal. What in the world?
Right.
The one time that Jim Henson was like, I'm just going to throw all kinds of crap in here. Me and the guys were sitting there smoking out. This is Jim Henson talking, right? Because, you know, he's made Yoda as a Muppet. And I was like, me and the guys were smoking out. And so now we made this rat dude. He's going to hang out in Jabba the Hutt's palace. What do you think? All he ever does is go, and George Lucas is like, yeah.
I like
Green light, let's go. Right. George Lucas is like, let me see. It sounds stupid enough. Yeah, let's do it. I'm on board. Sure.
I'm trying to my mind is going blank from the actual. Oh, I have another one.
All right, go ahead. You go ahead.
Mandalorian, of course.
Oh, sure. Yes, Jango Fett or Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Or their kid. Who's the kid? Who's the little kid?
Grogu.
Was that the kid? Well, there was the one kid that you see in
in the
Attack of the Clones. Yeah. He's young.
Yeah, one of them is Boba and one of them's
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I think we got 15.
I think we got more than 15, but I don't again.
And we never named Luke Skywalker.
And we didn't.
We
said Anakin, but we didn't name him as one of our 15. Or Leia, or
I said Darth Vader. I did use Darth Vader.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess that counts then.
Yeah. You know, but we could have gone like stupid, like, you know, Senator Organa, like Bail Organa. Who the hell cares?
I was trying to think of creative ones and not just go with like the first thing that came to mind.
Well, that one didn't come out. So was I, but now that didn't come out until we were finished, you know, because it was kind of like, well, Jimmy Smits had a great run on whatever, like LA Law or whatever that show was. Yeah, I think it was LA Law. And then he's like, what am I going to do for the rest of my career? Oh, I know. I'll go be a useless Star Wars character. And all I do is say, I'll take the girl. Which, by the way, I remember seeing that in the theater and going, you'll take the girl? The hell? Jesus, really?
Yeah.
Because then, George Lucas, Jim Henson comes up, okay, guys, now we're smoking out again. You like a rat, dude. So I just want to throw this out here. I'll take the girl. And George Lucas goes, yeah, print it. Yeah, I think that's good. It's cool. I'm thinking about like little minuscule microscopic, I don't know, midi chlorians or something that go through you and give you access to the force. What do you think? That's fucked up, man. No, that's stupid. George Lucas goes, I don't care. Screw you. What do you like? Make puppets? I don't need you.
Yeah, I was trying to think of that one. I don't know if you watched The Mandalorian, but I was trying to think of that the little girl that was in it. Um,
No.
she became such an integral part of that story. I was like, maybe I
Oh.
should remember her name. But I also like part of my ADHD is not being able to remember like jack shit about movies or characters. I could see the same movie like 800 times and not remember. My husband was asking me something about Endgame the other day, the Marvel Endgame.
Oh,
And
sure.
I was he was saying something about it and I was like, that happened in Endgame? He's like, no, it did not. And I was like, okay, I didn't think so. And he's like, you don't remember Endgame? I'm like, well, for one, I only saw it once. For two, it was a 3 hour long movie.
Sure.
Like, I'm not gonna remember everything. And we saw it in theaters, so like I have visual problems, so I had to like close my eyes for half the time because there's too much going
Oh
on
my
screen
gosh.
for me to be able to
Sure.
process. And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, I need to see it at least one more time before I actually remember anything. I can tell you the one thing I remember about that is there were 90, I think 92 main characters,
Oh my
and
gosh.
that drove me bananas. Never again. I,
Can
yeah,
can I make a literature recommendation?
go for it.
Yeah, don't pick up Catch 22 then. That one's
Good to
not
know.
Joseph Heller. Yeah, don't pick up Catch 22. 46 chapters, I think. 45 characters. Yeah, don't bother.
Crazy.
And the main character doesn't actually get a chapter devoted to him until chapter 46. You're like,
That's
God,
like
really following this
part of the
badly.
reason I hated the movie Hugo so much, and I know so
Oh,
many
I
people
didn't know
love
that.
it. I hated that like the main character didn't speak for like the first half of the movie. I was like,
Oh my
look,
gosh.
I don't like you're just seeing them. They're like mute, like walking through the world, and it's not like they're that's not part of their character. They're not like not able to speak. They just didn't have lines in the first like 30 minutes of the movie. And the
Wow.
director is great. No problems with the director. You know, that person playing that character is one of my favorite, Ace Butterfield. He played uh one of my favorite movies in Ender's Game was the main character.
Okay.
Um perfect, perfect actor. But that movie was just not it. The storyline was so boring.
D- Stream of consciousness that nobody has dared here. Um, you said Hugo, which reminded me of Hugo Weaving, who was also in V for Vendetta. Played Elrond, and I think we missed Elrond as a Star Wars character too. But played Elrond, was also Agent, was it Mr. Smith, I guess, in The Matrix. And I want to point out one of the first places I ever saw Hugo Weaving was as a transvestite in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, which incidentally came out when I was in Georgia. And I had a lot of people who were like, hey, I want to go see Priscilla with you. Can we do that? And then it wasn't in any theaters because it was, fucking Georgia. But we
Yeah.
did rent it. And for some reason, I had like 10 people around me, who are like, hey, what do you think? Is that good? Is that real? Is that true? And I'm like, well, I don't know. What the hell do I know? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's a dress. What do I? Anyway, moving on. In V for Vendetta, sorry, this is what I do. But
We're both
V,
so ADHD, it goes off
right?
every time. It's just
But
people
V,
watching
what's
us descend into madness.
I know. I think the character is just named V, right? And so he's got a mask on. This is the international sign for Hugo Weaving wearing a mask. And I don't think he has any lines ever in the whole film, if I remember correctly. And I probably don't because, he was pre-drunk, I think, at the time. But everything that he could convey was done with tilting his head and changing his shoulder. And it was amazing. I remember watching that and going, Damn, because no facial. Like there's no way I could make it without facial expressions. Botox would kill me because I'd be like, "Where's 3/4 of my expression has gone away?"
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine like wearing this ceramic mask the whole time. But there you go. Sorry, quick, it was a quick diversion mostly.
Yeah, that's very interesting to think about though. Like I rely on I also have part of my visual problems are that I don't have like facial recognition
Oh
really.
wow,
So I rely on things like if you changed your hair color, I would like be very confused. I would think I was talking to someone else, except I also go by like voice. So you'd have to like
sure,
drastically alter your voice and like your hair
sure.
color, or like the
I'll
length of
get a
your hair. Like
wig.
if you cut it really short, I would be confused as well. Something like
I'll
that.
go get a wig.
Right. You confuse me next time you come on with like a different voice and you just have a different hair, and I'm like, who are you?
Sure,
Um,
sure. I'm
yeah.
Amy's younger
So
sister, Amy.
right. Yeah. So
I don't
it's
know.
it's very interesting hearing that because I facial expressions don't always like compute.
Oh,
So
interesting.
watching someone only rely on body language actually kind of makes sense to me.
Wow. Okay.
That would be interesting to see.
Yeah. I'm very,
I should watch the
you
movie.
know, f- looking at eyes and mouth. I do a lot
Mhm.
of that. But if somebody were to ask me like, why do you think somebody's attractive? I know. Scarlett Johansson was in Endgame, right? Wasn't that the Marvel one?
I
Oh,
think she die before Endgame? I feel like she
had she?
died before
I
Endgame.
don't know.
I don't remember.
All
She
right.
died
Well,
either in Endgame or right before it, in whatever movie was directly before that.
which is fine. Because all I was going to say, Scarlett Johansson has these big blue eyes and these very lovely lips, and like that's what I see. People have gone, yeah, Scarlett Johansson, pretty attractive, and I'm like, oh, I know. Could you imagine if you just with like little pillows? I bet you that's so just plush and they're like, not what I was thinking about doing with Scarlett Johansson. I'm like, oh, you,
And you're like,
I mean, I mean that
you're
too, right? Oh, wow! I need to go transition gender. Apparently, shit. So,
again.
yeah. So,
Okay, let's see.
so we're just like counting down time now to 2 hours, aren't we?
Right, pretty much. So we have two more we could do, one or
Sure.
both. There,
Let's throw them both out.
there was one more that is attempt a Star Wars themed makeup look on stream, but that was one that I
Ooh.
threw in there, and I actually don't have any. We went over this last time with Masha. I only
Yeah.
have 15-year-old makeup, and maybe I shouldn't be using that. Um,
Right. Right.
so we'll throw that one.
All right. Let it
Um,
go.
if people start actually daring us to do a ton more like makeup things, I will go buy makeup, but I don't have any reason for it right now.
Sure.
Cool. So our other two are we can do a self-portrait, give ourselves 2 minutes to do a self-portrait,
Oh
as well
gosh.
as we could. Or we could give a lightsaber training class off the top of our heads, or both.
Can I? mm, I'm gonna
What do
regret
you
this.
think?
One second, okay? I
Okay.
know I'm gonna regret this. I'm gonna want to zoom out a touch here too. Give me one quick second. Where's my camera thing? Here we go. All right. Let me see how far zoomed in I am. Okay. All right. I'm gonna regret this. I already know it.
Alrighty.
But
Ooh.
here is my lightsaber. So 1 second, I gotta turn it on. It's very loud. Fucking A. All right, are we ready for this?
Absolutely. Ooh.
Oh, I hit the ceiling.
Oh no.
I don't know if the color is. I don't know if the color is obvious, but it's purple.
It's going almost like pink. Oh,
Yeah, I
you're
think I
using your
somehow screwed it up.
porcelain.
I had a darker purple before, but anyway, there you go. My
Nice.
lightsaber.
All right, so let's do some moves. First position up here. Gonna train. First position. Second position. I don't have a stick. Well, I have a marker or a pen.
What's nice is that I'm left-handed, right? There are
Uh,
no most of the time when you see somebody with a sword, they're holding it in their right hand. And I always love that bit in The Princess Bride where Inigo Montoya, or no, I think it's Wesley. One of them goes, "I am not left-handed." And then, they start doing the same thing. Because if I was going to do any sword fighting, you can beat the bejesus out of somebody if you're left-handed, or given how aggressive, or depending upon how aggressive they are, they will beat the bejesus out of you. So if you're left-handed, don't go sword fighting because you're going to hurt. So I had to learn to do the same right-handed. So I am not right-handed though.
Let's see. I used to do when I was in color guard, we used to have like two flags and we would attach them together and then start doing kind of like lightsaber moves with the
Yeah.
flags, which was really fun.
All right.
I should have been more prepared for this one, especially since I
right.
knew about it. But
here, for what it's worth, I got one for my son too.
oh, they
And
attach.
you can actually hang on. It's not easy, especially when you're dingy. I'm going to try to do this. Jesus, come on. There we go. I got it. No, I didn't get it. But they can be screwed together, and maybe I just want to say, trust me.
Sounds good. I believe you. They look like they go together.
They do. They totally do. Come on. Just believe me.
I believe you.
Because I did it once before. All right, I did it once before, and then I hit a couple of, like, I hit the tree and stuff. Hang on. There we go.
There you go.
So now you can do this. Or this.
Ooh.
I'm going to hurt somebody, probably me. Thank you very much.
I would say that was a successful training session. Beautiful. I need to get one.
It was fake. Yeah, those were great. Those were great. I bought them sometime last year thinking, yeah, my son and I are totally going to do this all the time. We don't. But we do we have done it a few times. Have silly
Going back to your
lightsaber
earlier
battles.
joke, that's how you do bottom surgery, kids.
I can save a lot of money. Just give me a good.
Now, it wouldn't work on trans masks. Well, we could get top surgery that way, though. We could just.
Ooh, that's true. That's true.
And because it's hot, like it's heat, it would just automatically cauterize it too.
Cauterize right there. Yeah.
Sounds perfect to me. Painful.
It kind of does. Yeah, I mean, a little bit. Yeah, it probably wouldn't feel good. Doesn't, nobody goes, oh, hey, I lost a hand. Bogus. Nobody does that, right?
Right.
Like,
right.
Falling over and Anakin's, I hate you. Right?
Yeah.
Do you know what surprised me though? Because Anakin had forgive me on this. Anakin is climbing up the hill, right? With a hand, with one hand. All right. He's got
Yeah.
one hand, turns into Darth Vader. His right hand is fake because Count Dooku. I'm just digging a
Oh, we
deeper hole.
forgot him
Count
too.
Dooku takes his arm off, right? So he's got one mechanical arm, and the point here is that in Return of the Jedi, so I just said people normally fight right-handed. So have sword fight right-handed. So Darth Vader is fighting right-handed. Luke Skywalker cuts off his hand, and the lightsaber falls down, right? The red lightsaber. And Darth Vader goes, "Oh!" You hear it. James Earl Jones is going, whatever James Earl Jones does, because it doesn't make a difference. But I'm like, it's fucking robotic. You can even see it. There's like little wires hanging out. Oh, I can't do this. Not on camera. But there's like little wires hanging out. I'm like, what hurts?
Yeah,
Is there
right.
something that? Why does that hurt?
I wonder if
somebody.
You know how they say that it like hurts like phantom pains when you have
Oh,
missing limbs? I wonder if it was like that. Like his
oh,
brain tricked him into. I mean, I don't know if they were that clever, but I wonder if his
could
brain
be.
tricked him into thinking, or maybe they had like advanced mechanics where the wires actually went into your muscles and it was like actually connected. I
And
don't know.
and for what it's worth, now that I think about it, I think that's the case. I want to say actually that Darth Vader somehow ended up having some sort of interface, and because of
Mm,
his connection to the Force, actually had a better interface. There's
mm.
right now some dork out there. There's some guy with horn-rimmed glasses. Birdman right now is out there going, these two are completely stupid. They really should have known Darth Vader's interface to the Force.
They're talking about Star Wars and they don't know anything. God.
That's it. I'm sending at least $100, daring them to shut the hell up.
We will take it.
Right.
Thank you.
206. I think we did our did our due diligence.
If you give us $100 to shut up, we will sit here for an hour in
I'll
silence
absolutely
next
do
week.
it. And you'll notice I made it through this entire hour. I mean, we talked a little bit before. I made it through this entire hour completely sticky free, not sticky at all. So that's, I think of that
Yay.
as somewhat of a, my
Somewhat of an
son's already
accomplishment.
like, what's that?
Somewhat of accomplishment compared to last time where we're
Well,
very sticky.
yeah.
Icing.
We were eating lunch, and my wife's like, do you have to do a pie again? And I'm like, I mean, it's a dare. I said, go put $1 into it or something. And my kid's like, I have $1. Like, God damn you. Really?
Well, we haven't gotten that one again yet, but
Mm.
they might.
Yeah, I'm just saying, give it time.
Trying to see if we got any last minute ones, but it doesn't look like we did. So any dares made from now on will be for next week. Cool beans. Well, this was successful. This was fun. I'm glad we
I
did
think
this.
so.
It's just us being dorks for an hour straight at this point, and I'm fine with that. I'm gonna
Yeah.
see if I can get
Yeah.
Kenley to join us next week. I think King will still be out of town, but
I think
we'll
so.
see. We'll see who we can drag into our madness.
Awesome. Can't think of anything better.
All right, well, and our last viewer just dropped off, so this is a good time to end.
Perfect.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you, Robin.
Thank you for joining us this week again, and we'll see everyone again next week. Go ahead and submit your dares for us, and we will consider doing them and being stupid again next week.
There's
As
got to be
usual.
something funny. Yeah, there's got to be
Yep,
something funny for May 11th. So,
exactly.
do you know there's a site? Let me see if this is it. I know I'm still killing. Yeah, National Today. That's what it's called.
Yes, I get the emails every day.
There you go. So I don't
That's
know
how I
what
knew it
May
was Orange
11th is.
Juice Day.
That it was how you knew which?
That's how I know it was Orange Juice Day.
Oh gosh. Okay. I don't know what the 11th is. I'm trying to figure it out. Oh my gosh. I can't even tell what day it is. Suffice it to say, we can figure out what May 11th is.
And do some themed
Maybe.
theater.
I've gotten to 6, 7. God, there's a lot of holidays. Oh no, I had the 12th. Sorry. All right, here we go. Here we go. We got Archery Day. Ooh, that could
That
go
sounds
badly.
dangerous.
Yeah. Wow. Really? Hostess Cupcake Day. That there's got to be something in that. Um,
Maybe
National
instead of pies
Foam. Hostess cupcakes in the face. National Foam Rolling Day. Presumably meaning, rolling out your calves as opposed to rolling around in foam. But I'm not sure. We have the O. Henry Pun-Off Day. I don't know. That
I don't
one
know what
that
that
one has
means.
well, puns. Why not? We could do puns. O. Henry wrote some great stories, but anyway. Oh gosh, I'm seeing Qui-Gon Jinn and Darth Maul fighting in the there's a little pop-up that just came up. So
That's funny.
anyway, I'm sure we can find something.
All right, well, that's our theme for next week, or our many themes for next week. We'll have to do something
Right.
with foam, something with puns, and something with hostess cupcakes, it sounds like.
Right. Well, there's a lot of days.
I'm
Don't just
excited
take
for
one.
next Saturday.
Right.
All right, well, I always hate concluding these. I have no idea how, so
Yeah, you just go, well,
peace
cool.
out.
I'm Amethyst Herrick.
And I'm Robin Mallory, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.